Today on the podcast, we have the pleasure of being joined by the legendary Rajiv Kapur. He's the best-selling author and an AI strategist. He's the CEO of 1105 Media. He has about 10 years experience in leadership spanning between a whole bunch of different Fortune 500s. His latest book is called Prompting Made Simple. We're going to talk a little bit about that. And basically has a whole bunch of really interesting frameworks for helping professionals get smarter, faster results from things like ChatGPT that we use all the time. He's a finalist for the Ernst & Young Entrepreneurship of the Year Award, and he is on a mission to make AI a little bit more accessible, actionable, and results-driven for business leaders and creative people like all of you listening. So welcome so much. Welcome today to the show, man.
I appreciate it, Jade, man. Thanks for having me on board.
Really excited to get you on board. Before we get everything kicked off, I have so many questions for you that I think the audience would love to hear about basically tips for becoming better at prompting and getting more out of AI models. Before we get into all of that, I'd love to know, I guess a little bit about your background, what got you started with this, started writing your book, I guess a little bit about your process. Give us a bit about your background.
Yeah, so I was a tech executive for a long time. I worked at Dell. I was an executive at Dell for a long time. I worked directly for Michael back in the late '90s, mid to late '90s. It was a great experience, and just kind of worked my way up at Dell, and then eventually ran kind of part of the Western region for Dell, and then went to China and Hong Kong for Dell in 2000, and Singapore, and kind of helped build out the South Asia market, and then was recruited to be the president of an e-commerce company
Okay.
out here in Southern California in Orange County called Smart Home. We did that for a few years. And then that actually led me to my next gig, which is I actually became the CEO of an audio technology company headquartered out of Switzerland, of all places.
Okay.
Amazing company, started by a couple of amazing guys. And they actually were building AI audio algorithms back then. So this was like 14 years ago. And so a lot of people don't realize that there's two kinds of AI. So there's the ChatGPT generative AI stuff
Mhm.
that prompting is basically all about. And then you have machine learning AI. And so these guys were very much in the machine learning space all around audio technology. And so I was CEO of that company. That company eventually sold to Sennheiser. I was really enamored with AI. I wanted to learn more about AI. So I went to MIT and I got dual certifications at MIT on AI. And then when I was asked to be the CEO of 1105, about almost 11 years now, basically we were doing a lot. So we're a B2B marketing and media company, meaning we do a lot
Okay.
of stuff in the technology space, but all B2B. So our job is to connect buyers with sellers. So if you're a brand in the technology space and you want to find more buyers of your product, you come to us and we help you. So that's the basic way to put it. We do events, we do lead gen, we do all that fun stuff, right? But the areas we cover were data center, was cloud infrastructure, was cybersecurity, was big data, was business intelligence. So we were covering that already, and we started covering AI a long time ago.
Okay.
Again, on the machine learning side, when ChatGPT came out, we obviously added that to our repertoire. But I remember the day ChatGPT came out, I literally fell out of my bed going, "What the heck is this?" And I immediately said, "Hey, everybody on the planet's going to have to learn AI. It's going to be really important." And at the time, nobody knew just how impactful it was going to be. I knew it was going to be pretty big, not as big as it has become, but it's crazy to see where the future holds. But
Totally.
again, the science behind this really is going to all end up for the general consumer is going to be all around prompting, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we don't need to know how the sausage is made. The sausage, ChatGPT 5 will come out. We don't care the mechanics behind it, but what we are going to care about is how to get the most value out of it. And the way to get the most value of that is going to be things like prompting. So that's that's where we are.
Okay, amazing. And you've written this phenomenal book. I want to get into it, but I guess getting kicked off and asking you a little bit about how you're approaching prompting and some of your frameworks and what you're using. I guess for you, when you're actually going and developing a prompt, how do you actually work on refining it? Like, let's say you ask ChatGPT or any model like a question, it gives you a response that's okay, but it's not amazing. I feel like half the time I feel discouraged. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'll just go do this from scratch. Like, how would you work on refining that prompt? I think for a lot of business professionals, they don't want to just go start from scratch because maybe it's a prompt that's going to help them do something on a more repetitive basis. I guess, how would you look at that?
Well, look, first of all, the good news is that ChatGPT has a memory function, right? So whatever you start doing, whatever you start prompting, whatever you've done in the past, if you're a business professional and you want to come back to that same thing, it's going to remember. So just remember that, right? But in terms of how I refine my prompts, what I start with is I always try to look at what I'm trying to accomplish. Well, what is that goal that I want to try to accomplish? And I actually kind of write that down on a piece of paper. And I
Okay.
write that down. And so I kind of start with what is my goal for this prompt? And just kind of write down like a little quick sentence. What is my ultimate goal? I then go into the prompt window and I start thinking about, okay, do I want to be a persona based prompt? So for example, and I literally just did this today. So I have one of my business units is struggling with one of their events that they're putting on.
Okay.
So I asked ChatGPT I asked to be an amazing event coordinator, an event planner, that has a strong technological background, who puts on great events, and imagine Steve Jobs is going to be the person on stage speaking, right? So I immediately gave it a persona. I gave it a multiple persona. I asked it to kind of also think of it from a Steve Jobs perspective. And so that's my starting point, right? Where I just really want to clarify what I want that persona to help me with. So I do a lot of persona type based prompting. I'll do a lot of chain prompting as well. We'll talk about that in a second. So I start with that. I start with that persona, kind of establishing kind of what type of support I want. Brainstorming partner, consultant, a data analyst to help me maybe analyze a set of data. So
Yeah.
I asked ChatGPT to actually take on a specific role, right?
Oh,
So once I have that persona in place, then I go out and I proceed to tell it the task. What is the task I want it to accomplish? Like, well, what task do I need help with? I need help with this. Here's the task at hand, and I'll even use the word task. Here's the
okay.
task we want to do. From there, I then give a context. So what is that context that I want to provide? We did this event last year. It did really well, but this is the time of year we did it. Now we're doing it this time of year. Last year we had this speaker. This year we don't have that speaker, or whatever context I want to provide, right? So for example, like it doesn't have to be something around an event. It could be like if you are just doing something personally and you're looking to do a vacation plan, you could say, hey, take on the role of an event planner. The task is to create a 10-day itinerary. Context is we like to we want to go to Africa, blah, blah, blah. Oh, by the way, my wife is allergic to pineapple,
Mm,
right? So that's context. You want to put context around the prompt, and then you make the final ask. Give me a bullet point framework, give me an outcome, give me a paragraph, give me a summary, you know, give me a brainstorming session. And then in this case, I gave it the role, the task, the context, the ask. But in the ask, I said, hey, and if you need more information from me to clarify, ask me questions. And a lot of people don't do that last part. And that last part is huge. When you
mm,
start realizing that you can get ChatGPT or Gemini, whatever, Grok, whatever you want to use, to start asking you questions, that becomes a game changer because now you feel like you're having a full-on conversation. And that's when you take that role, task, contact, ask type prompting and you combine it with chain prompting. So now ChatGPT is asking you a question, you're answering the questions that it might have. It might cause you to think for a few minutes. You might have to go back and pull up some data, some information, give it to ChatGPT, and it'll give you an answer. And then you can just go back and forth with it a little bit. But once you do that, you're going to start to see the clearer you are, the more specific you can get, the better your responses are going to be. And then once I have that, it might give me an A, B, C, D, E outline of whatever it is
uh-huh.
the output was. I might say, okay, great. I love it. I want to go deeper in. Let's peel back the onion on A. Go deeper on A1, da 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 da. Right. So then I just start going deeper, 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 deeper. And you just keep going back deeper, deeper, deeper. So that's really the goal, and that's really how you prompt, and from a business perspective. And that's really it is. And again, it's I have this talk where it's called a Taste of AI, Jaden, and I talk about the 6 key takeaways for AI success. And one of the 6 is storytelling. So
Okay.
the more you become a storyteller, the more you're using imagination in the prompt. So the more you're defining what you want that prompt to be, the way better your results going to be.
Okay. I love that. And I love this concept of chaining prompts together. I'm currently building a software that basically lets you link together different AI models and you put your prompts in there. And we find we're getting way better results doing that than just having like one, huge document that's a prompt. But I guess for people that are doing that, from your perspective, what are you seeing in, someone that would say like, yeah, I don't want to ask it questions. I don't want to have it go back and forth. I just want it to give me the thing one time. Like, what are you seeing in how good a prompt or an output can be if you just give it like a huge, blurb of text and of instructions versus if you have kind of a conversation back and forth and evolve the.
That's a good question. So I've seen both work.
Okay.
I've seen like these massively look. The average prompt from what I've seen and from my studies and talking to others, the average prompt for you to get a really good detailed response for what you're probably looking for is probably in the 300 to 400 word range.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not like just 2 sentences, right?
Yep.
Hey, tell me about Jaden or whatever, right? Or,
Yep.
what I mean? It's just, it's not, it's got search capability, but it's really not a search engine. It's an answer engine. So
Mm-hmm.
it's really more about the more information you get, it, the better your response is going to be. So if you can figure out how to to get to that level, it doesn't have to be 400 words. Like I said, that's the average. Some people put 800,000 words, or whatever it might be. Right? Though, again, the more you put in there, again, the better you're going to be. Now, I also understand that I've seen it where folks, and I've done it myself, where you might say, hey, you know what? I'm thinking about opening an office in London. I don't need a big long prompt for that, but I could just say, hey, ChatGPT, I'm thinking about opening an office in London. What do you think I should consider? And that's it.
Mm-hmm.
That might just be the prompt. And it's just like if I was just talking to somebody on the phone. So then it's just me naturally just having a conversation. Sometimes I'll just do that through the app because it's multimodal, and I'll just have a
Yeah, yeah.
conversation with ChatGPT. So it'll say, oh, do this, this, and this. That's, oh, that's a really good idea. What about this? And what about this idea? What about this? Do I need to have a bank account in London? Or whatever, right? I mean, so I
Mm-hmm.
just go back and forth with it. And I'll say, well, what are the pitfalls? What are the opportunities? What are the concerns? What are the challenges? So I like having that conversation because sometimes I can get my mind flowing. I could say, I'll ask Chat, I'll even say to ChatGPT in that chain prompting, I'll say, well, what do you think?
Mm-hmm.
It'll be interesting when, the response I get when I say, what do you think? Right. And so for me, I think that's kind of a win. And look, and here's the little life hack when it comes to prompting. If you get
Okay.
stuck prompting, ask ChatGPT to help you write the prompt.
I love
Right.
that.
So it's again, it's like having a conversation. It's no different than saying, going to a peer, a boss, a friend saying, hey, I really need help with this. What do you think? And have them help you. Right. So it's the same thing. If you get stuck with a prompt, if you don't think you're getting the right, if it's not being cohesive enough, or you're not feeling like you're getting to the right area with the prompt, then just stop. Say, hey, ChatGPT, I think we're on the wrong page. I'm really struggling with this. Maybe I'm not explaining the prompt properly. Can you help guide me how to write this prompt better for you? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then go down that path. And then say, oh, okay, great. With that being said, do you mind writing the prompt for me, ChatGPT, and let me see it, and then I can modify it based on what you give me, right? So that's another way to do it. And with things like Sora and these other things like Operator and all these other
Yeah.
things that are coming out in VO2, that's a good way to start also playing with those
Okay.
and getting the AI to help you.
Okay, I love that. I think that's a fantastic advice. One thing I'd love to ask you about is, so you've talked a lot about like having these conversations or being specific. In your experience, maybe for some people, they just don't feel like they can get a great output on a specific thing because they don't feel like maybe they're like an expert on that area. I think when people are making prompts, where do you think people are kind of over engineering their prompts, and where do you think they're being too vague on their prompts? Like, what are ways maybe people are kind of overthinking how much information they need to add, and what are places where maybe they need to add more information or be more specific?
Yeah, I think if you go back to that role, task, context, ask portion, I don't
Mm-hmm.
think people are putting enough context behind the prompt.
Okay.
And you got to be able to give it the context of what you're trying to do. So if you're doing a brainstorming session for 2026 business planning, but you're not asking for new revenue ideas, and you're not giving it the context of what happened before, or the concerns or the issues or the challenges, or hey, maybe you're in the hospitality industry and it doesn't understand that tourism is down or whatever, right? If you're not giving it the right context, it's going to be a struggle. Okay. So that's kind of one. So make sure that whenever you are doing your prompting, make sure it does have the right context to understand the position of where you are, what you're trying to do, especially from a business perspective, because ChatGPT doesn't know unless you've updated your business
Yeah.
information, unless you've uploaded all of your financials or whatever, your history, whatever, unless you've done all that stuff, it's not going to know, right? So you have to give it the context of what's happening. Now, you can also give it links to articles about your industry so it can understand that, right? You could
Mm-hmm.
say, here's an article on my industry about tourism being down. Take that into account when giving me your answer, or whatever, right? You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? So it's all about that context. So the deeper you can go in that context, the better off your response is going to be. And so that's what I think people are not doing enough of. I think what they might be doing too much of, and it's interesting. I don't know if we're at a point where people are doing too much. I just think, I think people are probably doing a little bit too much on the pleasantries,
Sure.
on the platitudes and those kinds of things. I do some of that just because, in case the Terminator robots come for us, they're going to remember I was nice, right? But, I do some of that. But I think, people sometimes I think think, I think people think too much, right? I think they overthink the thing. I think they overthink the prompt, and just keep it simple, stupid, right? And just
Okay.
start. Just start by writing it.
Okay, I have a question. So, based off your experience, I have no idea what your opinion on. There was a story. Oh my gosh, maybe like maybe a year and a half ago, where basically they're saying ChatGPT was going to give you a better response if at the end of your prompt you said, "If you do a good job, I'm going to give you like a $500 tip." And then they looked at the response. They're saying it did better. This was older versions of ChatGPT. People had all these kind of funny hacks and things like that, the thank yous and all this kind of stuff. Do you feel like in today's models, basically the frontier models we're seeing today out of Gemini and Anthropic and ChatGPT, do those things matter as much, or have we kind of moved past some of those tricks
They
and
still matter a
basically
little bit. They
okay.
still matter a little bit, and I think they still matter a little bit. So, for example, I was reading an article yesterday about how a guy convinced ChatGPT to give him Microsoft key codes by pretending. I don't know if you saw this article or not, but by pretending asking ChatGPT to be his grandmother and to sing lullabies in the form of Microsoft key codes. And ChatGPT produced a lullaby based on, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So some of that's still there, right? But you have to be really, you got to be really messed up here to do those kinds of things, right? So, I mean, but that's possible. And there are people out there that are going to do that, right? But it's again, it's to me, I want people to do whatever's going to make them comfortable to just start doing it, right? So
Mhm.
here's the thing: you and I live in a bubble, in an AI bubble, and some of the people listening on to this podcast, and I hope they're getting great value, are also probably within that bubble with us.
Totally.
But here's the thing: 3% of the population around the world really gets ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude or whatever, right? But there's 97% that don't. And that 97% is really what I'm targeting my books at. That's what I'm focused on, is that 97%. And they're just afraid to even start using it. Or and if
Mhm.
they are using it, they don't even know, like, to your point earlier, it's like, what do I even put in this thing? Right. And so,
Mhm.
when and the problem is that you got OpenAI releasing, you go to OpenAI, you go to ChatGPT, and you've got 7 different
That's
models to
ridiculous.
choose from. It's stupid. It's like, what are you doing, Sam? I mean, come on, just okay, fine, 2 or 3 max, whatever. Beginner, intermediate, advanced, simple, right? Study mode here, whatever, right? I mean, it's just simple, and study mode's pretty cool. But it just to start, I just want people to take the first step and don't be afraid and just start talking to it and forget about massive prompts. Just start talking to it like you're talking to a friend in the Philippines or you're talking to a colleague. I mean, you do the same thing on Slack
Yeah.
at work, right?
100%.
If you're on Slack or Teams, you have an office in Paris and you're in Los Angeles. Hey, what are you guys doing? What are you guys up to? Blah, blah, blah. Can you help me with this thing? Right? It's the same thing, right? So just
Yeah.
just pretend you're talking to another human. And if you start doing that, you start thinking with that process, it's going to be a win for you.
Okay. I love that. I think that's honestly great advice for everybody. Um, One thing that I would be curious your take on is basically what do you have a preference or have you seen any difference in what you've seen with basically using embedded instructions? So, like, let's say you want to give it some context, you copy and paste like a huge article pasted in versus uploading like a PDF document. Like, so basically the text versus just uploading documents. Have you seen any difference in results there?
No, I haven't yet. I tend to lean towards trying to copy what's in the PDF and
Hmm.
pasting it, just because sometimes I've noticed that ChatGPT struggles sometimes with maybe sometimes converting and understanding and reading the PDF. It doesn't happen
Okay.
often. It's very rare.
Yeah.
But I find that typically if I can take the PDF and just kind of highlight it or export the PDF to Word and just highlight it, copy and paste it, that tends to be for me personally, tends to be a
Hmm.
little bit of a better experience.
Okay.
Results wise, it's, they're not that far off, maybe off, they're about the same, off by maybe, I mean, give or take 5%, you know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
but to me, it's just easier to just copy and paste it because then it's also easy for me to go look at that PDF and understand what's written there. And if I need to edit something that I can't edit the PDF stuff, but I can edit the prompt. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? I can edit the
Yeah.
text prompt.
That's actually a
And
great point.
yeah.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. Okay, just from your own usage, I'd be curious, what's one basically prompt or automation that you use maybe in your business, an example of a great use case for ChatGPT that you use that other people might not be familiar with?
Yeah, no. So I'll give you 2, and I'll give you one personal one. And the personal one I literally just did this morning. So I broke this wrist about
Oof.
8 weeks ago. So my brace is off now, but whatever. I broke this wrist, and it was a little freak accident. And I'm starting to go back to the gym now because my brace is off, and I'm still having a gripping challenge a little bit. And so I put into ChatGPT saying, "Hey, ChatGPT, I broke my wrist 8 weeks ago," and it said, and do you remember? And it said yes, because what I had done was I actually took a picture of my X-ray
Okay.
back when I did the X-ray 8 weeks ago, and I put it into ChatGPT and said, "What did I do?" And ChatGPT told me exactly what I did. So my buddy's an orthopedic doctor, and I went to go see him the next day. I said, "What did I do?" And he told me what I did, and it's exactly what ChatGPT said.
Wow.
So now my point is that image is now in the memory function
Mm-hmm.
of ChatGPT, right? So it's in my account on my memory function, whatever, right? So now I could say, as you know, I broke my wrist 8 weeks ago. Do you remember that? And it says, yes, I remember. How should whatever. It gives me a response. I said, okay, I'm starting to go back to the gym. Can you please give me an upper body workout so I can start to exercise again and don't have to hurt my wrist? That won't put a lot of load on my wrist. That can also help me improve my grip strength, et cetera, blah, blah, blah. So I wrote the prompt, whatever, and hit enter. And it gave me a nice detailed prompt of what to do, what exercises to do, it was all kind of banded workouts, and so what to do, how to do it, how to structure it, rest, and it literally gave me a nice full response. It was perfect. I mean, oh, to me, it looked perfect, but I'm not a
Okay.
fitness instructor. So,
Yeah.
but to me, it looked great. It looked great. It was awesome. I could just literally just take that. It's on my phone now. I go to the gym and I could do what I'm going to do and whatever, right? It was awesome. So that's just one example of something that I did today. And I know people now who to take their blood work, and you want to anonymize all your information, right? Don't put your
Mm-hmm.
name on all that stuff, but people will take their old blood work, put their new blood work and have it compared. Say, hey, ChatGPT, I want you to act as a world-class doctor. What do you think? How does blood work compare? And then they take that answer, and then they go sit with their doctors. And the beauty there is that they're better armed now to be able to go back to their doctor and have a full conversation, right? Oh, my A1C level is elevated. Oh, you're pre-diabetic. So now they can walk into the doctor and say, oh, I think I'm pre-diabetic. Now let's have a conversation. Instead of spending 20 minutes talking about being pre-diabetic, I can have a 20-minute conversation. How do I fix the pre-diabetes, for example,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's one thing on a personal basis. From a business basis, I'll tell you the one that is probably in my company, the one that is the most used is you working with ChatGPT to come up with new business ideas, new
Mm.
growth ideas, brainstorming new programs, brainstorming new ideas. Act like one of our customers. How would you think they would respond to this? What are some new things that customers are going to want to see? Whatever the case might be, and really kind of building out those case studies. So I have a little advisory business that I do. I advise companies and organizations. I'm a member of this group called YPO, and so I advise a lot of YPO members. I'm sure you've heard of it, but and so, like, I'll give you an example. So, like, I recently worked with a YPO member, and she sold her company. So she had a big, giant shipping packaging company, right?
Okay.
And her company, and she's out of Houston, and her company would pack goods in crates and wooden crates. They could ship everything from small vases to Lamborghinis. Okay. And what was happening was, so she sold the company to private equity, and they did it. And about a year later, the private equity guys called her back. Hey, can you come back? We're having a lot of problems. So she went back, and she saw me speak at an event in Barcelona earlier this year. And she called me up afterwards, and she goes, Rajiv, I really need some help. Can ChatGPT help me? I said, well, what do you need? And she goes, well, here's a problem. Here's the situation. What was happening was the wooden crates were sitting longer on the container ships.
Mm.
And because of climate change or whatever the case might be, the water was a little bit more acidic, and it was causing the wooden crates to deteriorate a lot faster.
Oh, okay.
And so what's happening now, the salt water was eating away at the crate faster, was now getting into the merchandise and the goods. And so what happened was, and this is a true story, so there was a Lamborghini in a crate, the water got into the wood, it started spraying the Lamborghini, it started destroying the paint of the Lamborghini.
Oh no.
So now the company's on the hook for for a brand new Lamborghini. Okay. So that's a lot of money. So what do we do? And so I work with her. We basically did a business prompt. We did a brainstorming prompt on here's the issue, here's a challenge, here's a concern, here's the opportunity. So we gave it the whole role, task, context, task thing. We asked it for business ideas, solutions, or how do we fix this problem, and spit out a bunch of answers. But one of the answers it spit out was look at honeycomb product. And I'm looking at her like honeycomb product, and I could see this light go off in her head. First in my mind, I'm like, it's cereal, right?
Yeah.
And then she goes, no. She was interested. She had heard that there are people who would take honey and coat wood in honey, because the honey would keep would absorb the acidic from the
Interesting.
seawater or whatever, right? And
Yeah.
they had never done that. So they're now in the process of testing putting honey on some of their larger items and even some of the smaller items. So they have like a smaller about this big,
Mm.
and they actually take it, and they're now dipping. They've taken one and covered it in honey and honeycomb, painted honeycomb, a thin layer, and they like literally dip it in the seawater to see how long it'll last. And
Oh
then they're
wow.
blasting it with seawater to see how long it'll last. And so far, it seems the results seem pretty positive. But if that works, it's a game changer for them. And it took 15 minutes to write the prompt. So it's those kinds of things that in the business side that I get really excited about.
That is super cool. I mean, that's such a fascinating story, great use case, and of course, that's exactly what you want to use ChatGPT for, solving real problems inside of your business. Something that you mentioned there that I'm curious on, you talked about inside of your organization, this is something that you guys use a lot for a bunch of different purposes. I think a lot of people that are listening, maybe they have coworkers or maybe they're a leader in an organization and they're trying to get more people in their organization on board with using some of these AI tools. What do you think the best approach for business leaders is to get the people around them using these tools, right? We've heard companies say like, oh, like I think in Japan, there's like this AI mandate that some companies roll out where everyone has to use AI at a certain level, or like, how do you best encourage people to use it? How do you get them on their feet? I know your book is an amazing resource that everyone should give to everyone in the organization, but beyond that,
That's
like,
right.
how do you
Buy the
approach it?
book. Prompting Made
Yes,
Simple. There it is, right there. Prompting
promptly
Made
made
Simple.
simple. We'll leave a
Yeah.
link in the description of the show notes to the book for
Yeah,
anyone
look,
interested.
that's a great question. So here's the thing, right? To me, there's six key takeaways for AI success at any organization. Number one is it has to start at the top. It has to be the CEO. He or she has to own this. If they don't own it, it won't go anywhere. So they have to own it up here. They have to own it. They have to make it an initiative. They have to make it the core part of what they do. They don't have to be experts in AI, but they have to be an expert in terms of getting it implemented into the organization. So step one is the CEO. Step two is the C-suite. If somebody in the C-suite is not buying into doing this, you need to get rid of them. Period. There's zero room. And I'll tell you why in a minute. So they have to get on board. They got to get on this bus. Number two is be curious, not judgmental. I won't tell you the story of why that's number two, because I don't think we have the time, but you want to be curious. Don't be judgmental about this. Be curious. Okay. Number three, data, data, data. Data is the new oil. Look at your data, understand your data, understand. And my challenge to people listening, and my question for you, no, not for you, but for the people listening, do you have a good command of your first party data? If the answer is you don't, you have to spend a little bit of money to get that data under control. Because the more you do that, the more successful you're going to be in AI. Because AI is nothing without great data. You need to have great data to be able to have AI do something with what it is you want it to do. And number four, it's not about artificial intelligence, it's about augmenting intelligence. So that's an education process. So you want to make sure
Yep.
people understand it's about augmenting what you do. It's about helping you what you do. So for example, what do we have to do before Microsoft PowerPoint? What do we do before Microsoft Word, Excel? These are all tools that augmented what we did. Like I grew up at a time in the 90s when we didn't have PowerPoint and we had to use overhead projectors, right? And you know what I mean? So and we had to draw on a plastic piece of paper, or on a plastic paper, but on a plastic sheet. And you had to go to a library, you had to go to the library, get a microfiche or whatever. So but all these things, all these new technologies are designed to augment what you do, help you get better, at what you do, right? And if you can do that, you'll do the one thing money can't do, which is buy time. It'll buy time. It'll make you more efficient. And at the end of the day, become a storyteller and use your imagination. If you can do those, if you understand those six rules, you're going to be great. Now, in terms of like how to get people to use it, like in my organization, we first did mandatory training. Everybody's got to attend mandatory training. And we've done probably close to now probably 1,000 hours worth of mandatory AI training over the last year and a half, 2 years for all the employees. Number two is we start having contests. Whoever had the best prompt, whoever had the best idea, we feature those in our newsletter or in our monthly
Oh, I
newsletter or
love that. That's a
recognition
great
event,
idea.
whatever the case might be. Like, hey, Jaden came up with this prompt to help him with this issue, and he did it, and this but say it, he solved the problem, whatever, right? So we do that. We start doing a little bit of recognition around it, right? We have fun little contests around it. We have little hackathons around it, little things like that. So the more you kind of make it fun, the more you start doing it, the more. But however, the most important thing is you, the CEO, you have to lead. Be the leader. You do it. Make sure every staff meeting you have, are you asking your chief marketing officer, how are we using it in AI? How are we using AI? Ask your CTO, how are we using AI? Ask your chief, whatever, supply chain officer, whatever you have, how are we using AI to help with our supply chain, right? So the more you start asking it, the more you start pushing it, the more you become a leader around it, an evangelist, the more people will use it in an organization.
I love that. Yeah, that is some fantastic advice. Rajiv, it's been amazing having you on the show today. You've shared
Thank you.
so much incredible advice. For anyone listening, make sure you go and check out his book. The link is in the description for that. As we're wrapping up the show today, I guess I would love to get maybe one final piece of advice for you for people using AI. Anything you haven't mentioned yet on the show that you think people should be thinking about?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think when you start to realize that we are headed towards a future where things like, let me back up. We are the last generation that's going to be managing humans exclusively. In the future, we're going to be managing humans, AI agents, and robots. So, all I can do, all I can express upon you is this is really important. Don't be afraid. It's not going to bite. Don't, make sure, if there's two types of chat GPT, there's the regular version and then there's the team version. The team version is $5 more a month. Make sure you get that one because that doesn't use your data to train, you know, but just start to use it and don't be afraid. It's not going to bite. It's not going to do anything to you. It's going to help you. It's going to enhance you. And for those of you that are listening and worried about job loss and all those kinds of things, look, anybody who talks about, oh, there's gonna be a ton of job creation, or people saying, oh, there's gonna be a ton of job loss. The fact of the matter is nobody has any freaking clue what's gonna happen. The only thing I can pretty much guarantee is that if you don't learn AI, you're gonna get replaced by somebody that knows how to use AI. So just start the process and listen to your YouTube channel, Jaden, or your podcast or others, and just start to run, play, try new things. And it's going to be great. So it's just like riding a bike. Just get on a bike and start riding. And who cares if you fall off a couple times? Get back on. It's fine. Then nothing's going to happen.
I love that. That is some amazing advice. Thank you so much again for coming on the show. To everyone that's listening, thanks so much for tuning into the podcast. Make sure to leave us a rating and review wherever you get your shows, and I will catch you in the next episode.